Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a horror drama from the United States, English language, released in the year 2011, directed by Scott Liebrecht, and this film is called Midnight Sun. So Midnight Sun is about this security guard. He has a rare skin condition that prevents him from going outside in the day, so he takes the job as a night watchman in this building. So it's a very secluded environment, very isolated, and he feels very lonely and doesn't really have anyone to talk to. So he also has a problem of hunger. Now every time he eats, it doesn't matter how much he eats, he always feels hungry and that the pain is getting worse. So he goes to the doctor. The doctor doesn't believe him that he's been eating because it actually proves that he's severely malnourished. So this is a dilemma that this guy has to combat, and he finally finds a solution to this problem, but the solution creates a lot of suspicion within the police headquarters as people start to go missing. So this guy's life is about to become further complicated when he comes across this female. Now this woman, he quickly forms a very strong bond with her that quickly blossoms into a romance, but because of this guy's hidden secret, he doesn't want to allow this woman too close. So he has her at arm's reach, and but as the romance gets stronger and stronger, it's becoming increasingly harder to resist, which ultimately puts this lady in a lot of danger. So what that danger is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Midnight Sun. I actually really enjoyed this film, and it was a lot better than I thought it would be, because I think this movie does everything that Twilight couldn't do. And what Twilight couldn't do is balance the vampire subgenre with making social commentaries on everyday society. And what I mean by that is that, yeah, it was a movie about love, and it was a movie about these two people who didn't really fit in with the rest of the world who come together. But at the same time, they're making a mockery of the vampire subgenre. So you're not really getting into the film because you keep feeling to yourself, that is not what a vampire does. Why are they doing this to vampires? Why are they taking so many creative liberties that you may as well not even call them vampires? And it's basically just making a farce of it. It's making a mockery of it, and it's angering fans of vampire films. And so the movie doesn't work. Twilight doesn't work because it's not paying respect to half of what it's trying to do. Whereas in this movie, and Let the Right One In, which is an absolute masterpiece, they do it so well because they're using the vampire lore as an observation on everyday society, but they're doing it with a lot of respect. This movie is a very dark film, it's a very bloody film, it's a very depressing film, and it steers clear of all melodrama. And because you can actually respect that aspect of the film, it actually works as a symbolization of themes such as isolation, not fitting in, themes of addiction. Addiction is at the forefront of this film, is that you've got these characters who can't control their urges, and it shows you the destructive nature of addiction and how a lot of people, not just one person, can suffer from addiction, is that they can have a negative effect on other people. So I think the movie does a great job at keeping your interest in characters that are further developed in a very unrealistic sense. But because that unrealistic sense is an observation of these themes I've just depicted, it gives it an added sort of incentive to really care what's going on. So these main characters, very, very torn people, people with a lot of baggage, and that baggage helps contribute to people that you can connect to. In a very unrealistic situation, you can connect to these characters, so you're not thinking of them as caricatures, you're thinking of them as people as like you and I. And if you feel like you're a person who's on the outer, who can't really connect with the outside world, you feel like as though you can connect to these people, and so it gives that investment in these people that makes them very likeable. So I think they played it very smart in using the vampire subgenre in a very respectful way to use it as a social commentary of a very realistic situation. So you've got two contrasting differences, the outside sort of fantasy world of horror, and then you've got the dilemmas of everyday society, and they blend in very, very well. And so on one hand you're watching a horror film, on the other hand you're watching a very thought-provoking character study of people who just can't fit in. And it is a thing that happens in every day, and that people out there watching this film will be able to connect to these two, and that's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes it actually feel like the chemistry is there, and you feel like you want to know more. And when the drama elements of this film are happening, it never feels boring, because these characters feel like they're people that you want to take the time to know, and that this person who has this horrible sort of dilemma in his life, you feel that he's not a stereotypical villain, you feel that he's a victim of his circumstances, and that is true to nature, in that some people just can't get away from their circumstances, and that it can have a negative effect, and it can dictate what they're going to do. And I think the movie uses, as I said, it uses the entertainment of a vampire film, but intertwines it with a character study, and as I said, that's what prevents it from being boring, and that's why I think the movie works so well. So you've got the acting, which is fantastic. The actors had to play very simplistic enough characters, but with a lot of emotion. And as I said, you have to have that quality about them that makes it feel realistic. It makes it feel like you can connect to these people if you are suffering, similar sort of circumstances as these characters. Now, obviously, you're not suffering, vampirism, but it's that social awkwardness, the outcast, the people you feel like you can't connect, you'd rather be alone, the isolation, as I said, addiction. And so it's a very smart film, and it's so much more than you would first anticipate. I thought the cinematography was good. It was very raw and gritty. It felt like a lower budget film, which I thought helped the isolated feel and the depressing feel that the movie wanted. I thought there was very minimal soundtrack, so it wasn't dictating when you should be feeling this and when you should be feeling that. It steers clear of melodrama that polluted Twilight. It's not trying to go over the top. It just gives you these very subtle characters that blossom in a way where you actually feel like you want to know more about them, and you feel like you could befriend these people because they are likeable, but as I said, they're suffering these very unrealistic, damaging qualities that make it an entertaining film and at the same time a very interesting film that will make you think about your own life. The only problem with this film, however, is that I will say there was one character in particular that felt like he didn't really need to be there. It felt like he was a bit of a distraction. It felt like an element there for just to give something a little bit more interesting to the story, but the story didn't need that. The story was interesting on its own, but it felt like this side character, who was kind of like a gangster, was a little bit out of it, and it felt like, okay, you're putting in a little bit of theatrics into a film that actually that is actually grounded in reality, and because you care so much about these characters, why did you need something else just for theatric purposes? Because it's kind of like it was unneeded. It was a distraction. But that wasn't a major criticism, but unfortunately that is a criticism that you actually start to notice. But it's not enough to derail it. I thought the ending was absolutely beautiful, very haunting at the same time, and really captured what the whole film was about. Raw beauty versus the ugliness of the outside world, and how those two sort of elements fight each other constantly throughout the film. And that constant fighting between the inner self beauty and the outer world ugliness, that constant sort of fighting within these contrasting elements is what keeps the unpredictability. You don't know if these two are actually going to get together and stay together because of their circumstances. And so the unpredictability, the great characters, it makes for a very intriguing tale of a film that I thought blended the vampire genre in a very respectful way that doesn't make a farce of it. So you're not being angry at an element of a film, you're actually able to take on the film as a whole, and I thought, it works very well. So overall, for Midnight Sun, going to give it 3.5 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, thank you for watching. I'll see you later.